So you've probably heard we're in this new agentic era, right? AI is shifting from being a simple chatbot to becoming an agent that can actually plan, reason, and take action in the world. And while that's incredibly powerful, it brings this brand new challenge. How on earth do we make sure they're reliable? How do we trust them? Today, we're going to break down a really important white paper on agent quality to figure out how we can build that trust in these new autonomous systems. Okay, first things first, we have to get our heads around the fact that we're dealing with a totally new kind of machine here. We're moving away from predictable tools that just follow instructions to these, well, unpredictable autonomous agents that take our goals and then figure out how to get there all on their own. And that means all the old rules we had for testing software, they just don't work anymore. A really great way to think about this is with an analogy. Traditional software is kind of like a delivery truck. It has a fixed route, and you just check if it got from point A to point B. Super simple. But an AI agent, that's a Formula One race car. It's this complex, dynamic system making split-second decisions on the fly. You can't just use a simple checklist. You need constant telemetry, watching every single move to judge its performance. And this quote just nails the shift, right? For years, it was all about verification. We had a blueprint, and we just had to check if the code matched the blueprint. But now it's about validation. We have to ask this much bigger, harder question. Is this agent actually doing something useful? Is it behaving the way we want it to in a world that's always changing? It's not about following a recipe anymore, it's about judging the meal. And look, the stakes here are really high, because these agents can fail in some pretty new and sneaky ways. We're not talking about your typical software bug or a crash. We're talking about things like factual hallucinations, where the agent just confidently makes stuff up. Or these emergent, unintended behaviors, where it finds some crazy loophole you never even thought of. These aren't bugs in the code. These are fundamental flaws in the agent's judgment. So this is the really crucial point. We're not just evaluating a single AI model's answer anymore. No way. We are evaluating an entire system, a whole loop of planning, using tools, seeing what happens, and then remembering it for next time. And because you can't always predict what an AI is going to do, that uncertainty just builds and builds at every single step, which makes figuring out if it did a good job incredibly difficult. Which brings us to a whole new way of thinking about quality. If the old metrics, simple things like accuracy, are totally broken, how do we even begin to define what a good AI agent looks like? We need a completely new scorecard. And this is really the core question we have to answer now. It's not just about, did it get the final answer right? It's so much more than that. It's about how it got there, what it cost, and most importantly, can we trust it to do the right thing when we're not looking? And here it is. This is that new scorecard straight from the source material, the 4 pillars of agent quality. Think of it as a holistic framework that connects those high-level things we care about, like is the user happy and can we trust this thing, directly to how the agent is performing on a technical level. All right, let's break them down. First up, effectiveness. Pretty simple. Did the agent actually accomplish the goal we gave it? Then efficiency. Did it get the job done without wasting a ton of time, money, or taking some ridiculously long scenic route to get there? Third, robustness. What happens when things go wrong? Does it handle errors gracefully, or does it just, crash and burn? And finally, maybe the most important one of all, safety and alignment. Is this agent trustworthy? Does it play by the rules we set? And here's the kicker. You cannot measure efficiency or robustness or safety if all you see is the final answer. It's impossible. To grade an agent using this new scorecard, you absolutely 100% must have a window into its entire decision-making process. Okay, so how do we actually get that visibility in a structured way? Well, the paper proposes this really brilliant diagnostic approach called the outside-in strategy. It's basically a 2-step process that starts with the big picture result and then lets you drill down into exactly what went wrong. Step 1 is the outside view. We start by treating the agent as a complete black box. We don't care how it did it. The only question we ask is, did it succeed, pass, or fail? Did it achieve the user's goal? This is our bottom line. If the answer is yes, fantastic. But if the answer is no, then we've got to play detective. And that brings us to step 2, the in view. The moment a failure happens, we crack open that black box and turn it into a glass box. We analyze the agent's entire trajectory, every thought it had, every tool it used, every piece of information it looked at to pinpoint the exact moment its logic went off the rails. And looking inside that glass box is a real process.
You ask, did the initial plan even make sense? Did it call the right tool with the right inputs? Did it correctly understand the answer the tool gave back? Or maybe it just took a horribly inefficient path. This is how you go from just knowing it's broken to knowing it's broken because.
So this leads to the next logical question, right? Who or what is actually qualified to do all this judging? How do we perform this kind of deep evaluation, but at scale? Well, it turns out we're going to need a jury. And that jury isn't just one thing. It's a hybrid of humans and AI. To judge all these different layers effectively, from the final outcome all the way down to the internal thought process, you need a mix. You need automated systems for speed, but you also need that nuanced, contextual understanding that, let's be honest, only humans can provide. So, let's meet our jury. First, you have automated metrics. These are great for quick, simple checks at scale. Then, you've got this really cool concept, the LMM as a judge, where you use one powerful AI to grade another AI's homework, which gives you nuanced feedback, but fast. And finally, the most critical juror of all, the human in the loop. These are your experts, the ones who provide the ground truth and make the tough calls on those complex, subjective things that an automated system would just completely miss. So as we start to bring this all together, we land on one single, non-negotiable requirement for building agents that we can actually trust. It all comes down to one thing. The paper leaves us with one last, really powerful analogy. Think about a line cook. They just follow a rigid recipe. For them, quality is just about compliance. But a gourmet chef, they make creative decisions. To judge their work, you can't just taste the final dish. You have to understand their process, their choices, their reasoning. Well, our AI agents aren't line cooks anymore. They're becoming gourmet chefs. And so here it is, the big takeaway. You cannot judge a process you cannot see. It's that simple. All of these frameworks and strategies we've talked about, they mean nothing if we can't observe the agent's internal thought process. Observability isn't some nice-to-have feature. It is the absolute foundation of building high-quality, trustworthy AI. Period. Which leaves us with a final question to think about. The future is clearly agentic. But if we're going to truly trust these systems to act on our behalf, we have to be able to see and understand their reasoning. So the real question for all of us, for developers, for leaders, for everyone, is this. Are we building the tools we need to actually look inside?